Welcome back. In this video we are going to get our app to the point where we can finally draw on the view, and because we are going to draw on the view, I also have the view class opened here in documentation, and that is something that I highly recommend you to do as well, to check out the documentation each time that you want to know more about a class and more about its different members. So for example, we have this class view, and as you can see, it's a long file and a very long website. That's why it took so long to reload it when going from Java to Kotlin. And you can see here public constructors and all those kind of things. So a bunch of stuff that you can set in a view. All right. And what you can check here is a method that we're going to use, which is called onSizeChanged. So you can see there is this method called onSizeChanged, and here it says this is called during layout when the size of the view has changed. So in here we can create a bitmap. So when the size of the screen is changed, we want to display the bitmap, because it will require something to be displayed on our view, and what we want to display in there is our canvas. All right, so let's have a look at that. Let's create or override this onSizeChanged. So you can see we can override this function because it exists in the view class, right? And as you know, our drawing view is inheriting from view, so we can use its members and override them. That's what we did here. So what I want to set is I want to set my canvas bitmap, because you maybe remember we had not set that one yet, so it was still null. So now at this point I can set it. I can just say create a bitmap with a certain width, a certain height, and a configuration. So if you look at it, there are so many overloads. Look at this, create bitmap. So there are a bunch of overloads that you can use, and we're going to use the one where it has a bitmap config. All right, so with height and bitmap dot config, so a configuration, and here you can use a configuration as you like, and I'm going to use ARGB8888. And you can see each pixel is stored on 4 bytes, each channel RGB and alpha for translucency is stored with 8 bits of precision. So that's what we're using as the configuration for our bitmap. So this is the amount of colors, so to speak, that we want to be able to use. So not 8,888, but 256 possible values for each of the 3 colors, for red, green, and blue, which ends up being multiple millions of colors, right? So a bunch of colors that we can use now. And the next thing that I want to set here is to use this bitmap as the canvas bitmap. All right, so, or as the canvas to be more precise. So I'm just going to use the canvas, and here to canvas you can pass a bitmap, or you have to pass a bitmap. So I'm going to pass my canvas bitmap here, and because canvas bitmap is a null type, we need to use the double exclamation mark here, because we just set it. It's going to be fine because it's not null, right? So at this point our canvas is set as well. As you remember, we also had this canvas which was null, and we still hadn't set it because instead of drawing we didn't set it. So we set it each time that the size is changed of our screen, and it is called once the screen is inflated, so once it's displayed, so to speak. So once our view is displayed, our drawing view. All right, the next thing that we need to add is what should happen when we want to draw. And there is a specific method for this. It's called onDraw. You can see override fun onDraw. So this onDraw needs a canvas on which it wants to write something or draw something. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to draw something on our canvas. And what we need to do in here, in our canvas here, we can go ahead and set the canvas to be, or to call draw bitmap. Then we need to pass the bitmap that we want to draw on, and we want to draw on our own bitmap that we created, which is called mCanvas bitmap. And Because it's a nullable, we need to use the double exclamation mark. Then we need to say at which position we want to start, and I'm going to say at 0, 0. So I want to start at the top left corner. And finally, I'm going to pass canvas paint. All right, so if you're wondering where are all these values from, you can, of course, always check out the documentation. So either on the website or you can open it from here. And if you want to know more about Draw Bitmap, you can check out here what it does. Draw the specific bitmap with its top left corner at X and Y using the specified paint transformed by the current matrix. Note if the paint contains a mask filler, it generates a mask which extends beyond the bitmap's original width and height. Okay, but we want to only draw on the original width and height. Okay, so that's what we're going to do here. Now the thing is, on draw says here canvas that it's going to be of canvas nullable, but I personally want this to not be a nullable. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this question mark here, and if it creates an error we can fix it, because we can add something like here, change canvas to canvas question mark. If fails, for example, we could then later on still check it, but as you can see, at least the compiler is not complaining, so we can test it like that. Of course, the alternative would be to make this one optional here, or nullable, because that would work as well. All right, and then the next thing that we need to draw is our path, because that's what the path is for, right? So we created this path. So canvas.drawPath, and here not draw paint, draw path. And here we need to pass a path and a paint. So where do we get our path from? Well, we get it from mDrawPath. And where do we get our paint from? Well, from mDrawPaint. Now the problem with those two is that they're both nullables, so we need to use double exclamation marks here. Now the next thing that we definitely need to check is if mDrawPath is not empty, because if we look at it, it's of type custom path. But what if we didn't start drawing anything? Well, what we can really make sure of is that our mDrawPath is not empty. Okay, not, so the exclamation mark here to start, not mDrawPath dot is empty. All right, so only if that's the case, then draw something. Now the next thing we need to set is the stroke width that we want to draw with, because we set the width of our brush size, or we set the brush size here, but we need to actually say how thick the paint should be, and here we can set that to mDrawPaint stroke width, and it should be mDrawPath dot brush thickness. So as you can see here, the brush thickness of our custom path, because mDrawPath is of type custom path, that's why we can use the brush thickness here. And now the next thing is we also want to set the color of our custom path. So mDrawPaint color is going to be mDrawPath color. And each time I have to use these exclamation marks because, as you know, mDrawPath is a nullable. All right, so now we have what should happen when we draw. But when should we draw? Well, I want to draw something when I'm touching the screen. So what we actually need to do is we need to change the mDrawPath. So we need to fill the mDrawPath, so to speak, with a path that should be drawn, because otherwise on draw doesn't have anything to do, because mDrawPath is going to be empty. So there's nothing in there. So what you see here is I'm checking if it's empty. I'm not checking if it's null. So what we need to do is we need to implement the onTouch event functionality. So onTouch event, you can see there is a function here. We can override it, and here we can now go ahead and start saying what should happen when we touch it. So what I'm gonna have is a variable which is going to store the X value of where it was touched, so event X, and then a Y value when the event is touched. So as you can see, they're motion events and they're nullables here. So I'm just going to add the question marks here, of course. So this is something that has been added actually while I was recording or while I was preparing, because before that motion event in this case was not a nullable. So they have added it with the latest update. So what could be the case is that they have actually added some more variables and made them nullables, because I think they're still figuring out how to use nullables in Kotlin everywhere in the documentation or in the whole code that they have prepared in their libraries, right? So it's going to take a little while until their final version will be out. So the next thing is we have multiple actions that can happen. So event can have multiple actions, and this here is very generic. It's always the same three things that you have when it comes to motion events. All right, because we're using motion event here, right? If you want to know more about motion event, just check it out. As you can see, motion event is a class which takes care of motion events. Who would have known? And the three events that are important are action down. So once we get with our finger on the screen, then action move once we drag our finger over the screen, and action up the moment when we release the touch. So when we lift our finger, so to say. All right, so these are the three motion events that we have. So here motion, and it's actually capital motion event dot action, and as you can see there are a bunch of other actions, but the three are the most important ones. So action underscore down. So what should happen when we press onto the screen? And as you can see, we're using an expression here. You maybe remember what this is. It's a lambda expression. So we're using lambda expressions here. All right, so when we press on the screen, we want to set the mdraw path color to be the correct color. Then we want to set the mdraw path thickness, brush thickness, to be mbrush size. And by the way, this is not the same as what we did here. So here we actually said how thick the paint should be, and here we're saying how thick the path is. It's two different things. It's not the same. And then we reset whatever we had. So clear any lines from the and curves from the path and making it empty. And then we move our mdraw path, move to touch Y and touch X, or to be more precise, touch X and touch Y. And as we see here, they are nullables, right? So they have this question mark when the motion event, and that's why we have to force it here. All right, because here at this point we're saying, okay, there is actually going to be a touch event. If you wanted to be 100% sure, of course you would need to add an if statement around it, so double checking. Okay, so alternatively you can also run over it, surround with null check, and the same for this one, surround with null check. Okay, so now it's only going to move to that spot if touch X and touch Y are not null. All right, so this is what should happen when we have the action down. Now let's add the motion event dot action move. So this one here. What should happen when we drag over the screen? Well, then I want to set my mdraw path to be a line 2, and here we do the same thing. We set touch X and touch Y. And now of course it's going to complain again, so we can add null checks to be 100% certain. And then finally, what should happen when we release the touch? Well, we do the again motion event, action. This time it's action up. So here again a lambda expression with and draw path being a custom path with the color and the brush size. So then I'm going to add an default case here, so else return false. So for this when expression here, when event, because as you saw there are a bunch of other motion events that are possible. I'm just going to say for all the other ones just return false, so don't do anything. Alright, and then there are two more things left to do here. Otherwise I'm going to return true. So if none of the else cases is the case, then it's going to return true. But just before that I want to invalidate. So now what does invalidate do? Well, you can hover over it, click on it, and you can see invalidate the whole view if the view is visible. And onDraw will be called at some point in the future. This must be called from UI thread. To call from non-UI thread, you can alternatively use this post invalidate method. All right, but we're going to use the invalidate method. All right, so now we have prepared this view, and it took us quite a bit, right? But we still wouldn't see it. So we still need to add it to our activity main. So here, instead of having our hello world text view, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to use my EU dot, and there we are, tutorials.kids drawing app drawing view. And now I can of course set all of the settings for our drawing view. So first of all, I need an ID, and I'm going to use the ID drawing underscore view. Then I'm going to set the layout width to 0 density pixels, layout height to 0 density pixels, and then some constraints. So I want this to be in the middle of the screen, so I'm just going to use all of the layout constraint, bottom to bottom of parent, left to left of parent, right to right of parent, and top to top of parent. All right, and once all of that is done, we can finally check our application and see if it's running and if we can finally draw something on the screen. So there we are. Let's see. And as you can see, now we can draw on the screen. All right, so this was quite some work, but I promise you that the other features will come a lot quicker. So it's going to be a lot easier to add all the new features in the next videos, and they're all going to be a lot shorter. But this is just the effort that we needed to put in to even see anything on the screen here, right? Because our drawing view, it needed all of this setup in order to do anything. All right, so this on touch event, for example, we needed to implement that to even print anything on draw in order to draw something on the screen, on size change to even just set the canvas to be correct, and of course our setup drawing in order to set up all of the variables that we have prepared. So now a very important aspect that I need to talk to you about is that you wouldn't have to come up with all of this stuff by yourself, and you wouldn't know all of these things. You would build up step by step. So you would check out some documentations, then you would check on some tutorials, and then you would step by step build this. So this is not something that I would expect you to be able to build already with the knowledge that you have gained so far in the course. So no worries there. All right, so now let's take care of the drawings or our lines to stay permanently, or at least for the duration of our activities life cycle. So see you in the next video.